All right, so I might go ahead and introduce Shahin, and then we can kick it off. Keep going ahead and writing in your intentions or the reasons why you're joining us as introduce Shahin, and then we'll get straight into it. So Shahin is a member at Workspace 365 from our 607 Burke Street location, and is the founder and CEO of xGrowth. They support B2B technology firms in building and maintaining predictable revenue-focused growth engines. He's worked with the likes of VicRoads, Byte, Village Roadshow, and many others in maximizing their marketing efforts to get great results. So, of course, Shahin is rapidly learning and adapting to the current climate and environment. And so he'll share his tips, insights, tricks, and perspective on LinkedIn, and also with a layer of Corona on the top, and how does it fit in, and how can we make the most of it during this time? So over to you, Shahin.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for that intro, Al. I really appreciate it, and thanks for having me here. Obviously, it's tricky times, as you said, with Corona. I'm guessing everybody is sitting at home and listening to this, and I think we got one more point. Interested to learn about the positions of virtual versus physical engagement during COVID and lockdown. Nick Johnson, yeah, that's a good one. So yeah, as I mean, Nick pointed out, it's changing so fast. We were talking earlier, and weekend comes, usually Sunday comes and Monday is a different world. At least it's kind of been like that for the past 3 weekends. So and everything keeps changing, and it's very fascinating to also look at some of the countries that are a little bit ahead of us in terms of the COVID curve, as everyone is putting up even on LinkedIn, but and see what is happening over there. So hope to shed some light, throw some insights out there, and go from there. As Al said, we run an agency right here in Melbourne, which focuses on B2B technology. In the recent weeks, we've seen some of our B2B clients start focusing on B2C and building solutions for B2C. So it's bizarre, but it's also really cool. Now the presentation is kind of not LinkedIn 101, but it covers a lot of the basic components. But it also there are a few points that I'm going to talk about around more advanced stuff that you can have a look at of what it means when people hit you up on LinkedIn and say, we will generate 20 leads for you per month if you're interested, then through LinkedIn. So we'll talk a lot about that. But let's jump into the presentation. What do you think? Let's do it. Oh, also as we go through this whole thing, if anybody has questions, shoot it in the Q&A box. I'll have it open right here, and more than happy to answer them as we go through the talk. I don't think I'll be having visuals on the chat, so I don't know if the Q&A is the right place, or if you have visuals, Al, let us know, and we'll go from there. Sounds good. Let's do it. All right. So leveraging LinkedIn during Corona times. So let's dive into it. So the very first, I guess, question that you got to think about is why LinkedIn, right? There are a bunch of reasons why you would be on LinkedIn, and I'll come back to this point. You might want to get in front of the people who are going to buy your product or service. You might want to get further exposure, or you just want to build a relationship with decision makers. Those are some of the usual reasons that you see people on LinkedIn. But it's really important to kind of say, hey, I want to be in LinkedIn. This is kind of the objective that I have, because that's going to dictate how you interact with the platform, how you produce content, and everything around it is going to come. It's going to feed from that. So we've had people who've had clients who come and say, I want to use LinkedIn. They were in the film industry to find potential investors and studio houses to invest in our upcoming film that we're producing. And then you have the more common ones where people are on the platform talking about we want to get more leads, we want to get more sale, we want to get our name out there. So we'll talk about a lot of that, but it's what I'm trying to say is that that's the most important component at the beginning, to say we want to get leads, we want to get exposure, we want to get we want to just connect with more people, increase our network. You could also have multiple reasons why you're on LinkedIn. You know, for us is one of the components is from an xGrowth perspective, it's visibility and generating further visibility for our brand. And the other two reasons, one is to accelerate pipeline. So when we talk to somebody, we immediately add them on LinkedIn, and we make sure that they see the content that we produce, so that if in normal times, if they only see, you know, we have one meeting at the beginning and then 2 weeks later we have our second meeting, and that was the only exposure they would get to us. Now what we make sure is that they would see us over time, and that has helped tremendously in terms of establishing us as we know what we're talking about. They would consume our content, they would get even more familiar with us and who we are and what our personality is. So that's the second reason we use LinkedIn. And the third one is for our existing customers. They're all on LinkedIn, and we produce content, and they come across it, and they're aware of some of the new developments and stuff that we're working on. Those are some of the three main areas that we use LinkedIn for. But it doesn't mean that it's, you know, it's the only way that you can use it. But it's really important. The point I'm trying to make, really important to make a call on why you're trying to use LinkedIn. Cool. 675. So this is the number of users that are on LinkedIn today. We did the math. In Australia, there are about, since last year, February, there were 8 million users on LinkedIn. And we were looking at the numbers, and that kind of means that if you do the filtering, meaning that if you get rid of people who are over 65 and people who are under 18, the population that you kind of are left with, and then look at kind of white collar and people who are in the workforce, you probably end up with 2 out of 3 people are on LinkedIn in Australia, right, in the professional setting. And when you go higher in terms of like managerial and above, that number drastically increases. So your audience is most probably, with 90% certainty, is going to be on LinkedIn, and that's where the attention is. That's where, and you day after day you see increase in terms of the number of minutes of engagement on LinkedIn. So it has almost become a no-brainer. And you've seen this growth of LinkedIn after they're purchased by Microsoft. Microsoft wants to be in the social media space, and they purchased LinkedIn a few years back, and they poured so much cash into it to make sure that it becomes a dominant player in the space. And now they're integrating it with their CRM. They're integrated with so many different platforms that it becomes a vital piece of social media that you could leverage a lot from. You can also waste a lot of money on it, waste a lot of time on it. So there's no doubt about that. And I'm sure a lot of people staying at home these days have noticed the never-ending scrolling that you would end up doing on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. But still, it's a valuable platform if leveraged correctly. Cool. Let's go and talk about what we're going to focus on. So the very first thing that you got to figure out and sort out is your profile, right? What is your profile? How does it look like? And how do you optimize it in the best way? The second component is how do you connect with people? I know there are certain people who are not a very big fan of reaching out to people that they might not know, and they protect their network very, very closely, and they say, I would not connect with someone that I don't know. There are pros and cons to that, but I'm going to talk about how you go about and connecting with some of the people that you want to connect, that there are potential prospects that you could collaborate with and generate more value as the combined effort of the two rather than being separate. And lastly, we talk about content production, right? And what does content production look like on LinkedIn, and what are the levers that you can pull that is going to give you more exposure on LinkedIn? So social media platform, what it does is goes through these different curves and cycles where at the beginning you just want to get users on the platform. Later on, you want to increase the time that users are spending on the platform, and then towards the end, you want to monetize it heavily. Where you see Facebook is today, where LinkedIn is right in the middle, where they want to increase the time that people are spending on LinkedIn, and as a result, they make sure that if you, for example, post something, they give it a lot of exposure because they want to incentivize you to post more, because it becomes a content platform. As a result, more people are on LinkedIn, there's more engagement, and it prepares them for monetization. So they're giving a lot of organic reach to everyone's posts on LinkedIn, and that's not clear how long it's going to last. I'm sure there's some internal metrics that LinkedIn will look at, but at some point that will start to turn, and you see that LinkedIn is saying, all right, you want exposure, you got to pay for it. Just like Facebook did, and definitely Instagram is in that transition right now. So those are the three things that we're going to talk about. If there is anything else that you also want to cover, please make sure to drop it in the Q&A or the chat box, and we'll go through it. Cool. All right, let's start with the profile. So I've put this profile out here from Scott Barker. He's at Outreach, and they're probably one of the best. Outreach is a company. They're not present here in Australia due to certain privacy issues, but they're very, very strong in the US, and they're predominant. The way that they work is they provide a sales engagement platform where you do outreach through email. So they're very strong with outreach marketing and outbound marketing, and therefore, usually when you look at the profile of the staff are heavily optimized. So there's certain obvious stuff, and the very first one is your headshot. There's so many people that I come across that the headshot is not optimal. It's they're at like a bar with friends, or they've cropped the photo from some other image that doesn't really match. So like a headshot is really important. And the other thing that I would say is don't try to be artistic with the image, like looking away and being all very having an air of mystery. Don't do that. Allow people to see your face, see your eyes for sure, because when you're trying to connect with people, they need to look at you and trust you. And if you portray a level of first of all, lack of professionalism, and secondly, that ambiguity, it would cause friction. So make sure your headshot is correct. Work on your title. Now, if we were doing this talk 6 months ago, I would say we help right? But what has happened is, during the past 6 months, so many people are doing it in their title that says, we help these companies do this, or we help these individuals with this thing. That almost when you see something like that, you're like, it's gonna be a sales pitch. Somebody's gonna pitch me something. So you got to be a little bit more creative. Talk about the problem that you're solving, but also keep it professional, right? But it is really important to get this bit of text right, because this appears everywhere. When you comment on something, it's going to appear. It is not only going to be visible when people visit your profile. It is also going to be visible in other areas where you make comments and likes and so on and so forth. So make sure it's super clear. Make sure that when somebody reads it, they get what you're doing. A lot of people have started to move away from just talking about their title. You could do a combination. Have your title and the description of the problem that you solve. But make sure it's optimized. So that's probably the second most important thing. The third one is your summary. There are so many people who have very bland summary on their page. This is probably the third area that people are going to look at if they're looking at your profile. So make sure you work on that. You talk about again, make sure you're problem focused in your summary. Don't talk about your achievements and awards that you've won, or all these things. Talk about the problems that you solve and the areas that you help your prospects. Move away from I've achieved this and I've achieved that, and even here, Scott talks about as a top performer in sales. It's borderline what you should do. So move away from that and talk about problem statements and how you solve them. And if you're open to that, leave people to allow you to contact you, especially if you're in the sales profession. But if you're not, then you might be a little bit more discreet with how people can reach you. And lastly, leverage this this banner that you have in the top. You don't have to be pushing specifically like talk to us now, but leverage it. Speak to your marketing team at your organization. Say, can you design something for our banner? Because it's a piece of content that is very visible, and everybody is going to see it, probably even more than your headshot. So make sure you leverage that banner on top. For example, previously we've just changed it because of Corona. We didn't want to promote the same thing, and all our website and everything is going to go through a little bit of change of messaging because of Corona. But previously, for example, for me, we were promoting our community growth colony, and it was about how people can sign up and become part of the community. But now we just changed it. So there's not much on my profile. If you go on right now, there's a white image with a couple of bubbles on the side. But definitely leverage that, and I'm going to change mine as well in the next couple of days. So there's one thing that is in the profile that I think happened within the last week, and that's if you see at the very bottom here, and you have these kind of like boxes that they've put in. They've created a new section that they call it highlights, right? What I would do is I would also work on that highlights, because it can be even more prominent. Like it could be your image, your banner, and this next thing that people see is that highlight. So go to your profile, check that out. And what I would recommend is don't have multiple items there. Have one, optimize the image for it, and then have some text on the right side. I just discovered this a couple of days ago. Wasn't able to put it in the presentation, but that's probably the last thing that I would say that to optimize for your profile. The important point is just have one update over there. Don't have multiple, because it's going to shrink it and they're going to become less significant. And have one big highlight that is going to present whatever you want to say. Cool. That's the profile. Now, that's the end of the profile. There was one question that came through. Was there? I saw something pop up, but I'm not sure how to access it now.
Yeah. So we had, as a company, should we be sponsoring content or running ads on LinkedIn during COVID?
I'll come to this. And I know
we'll come to this later.
So I'll come to this in the content piece. I'll move through the connection part pretty quickly. The point of this slide is make sure you connect with people. Don't be too rigid in terms of whether you want to connect with individuals or not. You have tons of people. Make sure you hit that connect button, and then leverage that 300 character invite limit that you have. Right? Don't just send a bland invite. Leverage that. If the individual is so super important, one of the things that we do is we record a video and embed that link in the invite that we send. So when they open it up, it's our face saying, in this case, let's say it's Tom or whatever. Hey Tom, thank you so much for accepting the invite or looking at the invite. Love to connect because of these reasons, and it becomes super personable and personalized. So make sure you use the connect button. Use the 300 character. If it's someone really important, leverage LinkedIn. Use Loom, record yourself, shoot it out. It can be also super effective for sales, where you want to maybe you want to pitch people. Use that to pitch individuals. A lot of companies that pitch you that they're going to get sales for you, this is what they use. They use a bot that is going to connect with Sales Navigator, and they're going to go through Sales Navigator and automatically connect with individuals and send a generic message to them. There's some level of personalization that they can do, but they're going to send a generic message. If they accept the invite, there's going to be an automated message that goes afterwards that to this individual, and then usually pitch them. It worked really well 12 to 6 months ago. Now there's so many people who are doing it. You probably are going to burn your reputation by going down that route rather than getting leads. So I would probably stay away from people who say, you know, we're going to get you a lot of leads, because that's the way they're going to leverage the platform. It's not going to be personalized, and a lot of people are starting to see it, and a lot of people have stopped accepting these requests. Cool. I've connected with a bunch of people. Now what? Content. And this is probably more important now than any time before on LinkedIn. So before I talk about, hey, how should you go about with LinkedIn and promote yourself and your company on LinkedIn, let me just quickly go through the spectrum of what is important for LinkedIn. So LinkedIn will show you if you have, so the first component is likes. And this spectrum here is about what LinkedIn is going to provide more visibility to. So if you like a post, LinkedIn is going to show that, you know, James has liked this post to all his connections, right? Comment has a higher priority for LinkedIn. Then there's shares. Third one are text posts, image posts, and then video posts. Now this last three, LinkedIn is playing with them. So sometimes they would move those around. Sometimes you get more exposure on your text, sometimes on video. It's very clear that LinkedIn's algorithm is moving that around to optimize for something. I'm not sure what it is, but definitely play around with those three. Those are the platforms, the posts that are going to get the most exposure. You're going to get the most exposure from organically. So definitely make sure to leverage that. Now, what should you do during kind of this time? Google PPC is down by about 50%. So the cost of running Google ads is down 50%. Social media consumption is up about, I think, 76%. And on Facebook, I don't have data on LinkedIn, but Facebook cost for advertising is down by another crazy amount. I think it was 60%. I read this morning. So less people are advertising on social media and in general advertising, and less people are posting content. It might not feel it because you're going through the platform and see all these posts, but overall that is the case. So it is a bit of a vacuum, and you can get your message out there quite easily right now, and you can be bullish about it. A lot of companies are, you know, the example that I give is during normal times, when we're trying to grab the attention of our prospect, it's like we're in a crowded room with all our competitors and everybody's shouting at the prospect. Right now, everybody's gone quiet, and a lot of companies' strategy is to whisper to get the attention of the prospect, where their strategy should be to continue shout. Now, yes, it's correct that it's uncertain times. I don't want to, you know, I'm definitely against coming off as being too salesy. And that's why I think the content that you need to be posting, whether it's organic, whether it's being boosted by some money behind an organic post, or whether it's ads, has to be educational. In the current environment, and we've seen it firsthand the past couple of weeks with a lot of our clients and a lot of our own work, decision makers are not making decisions because every weekend on a Sunday, the world changes. There's a new regulations that come in, certain businesses close down, all of this thing is happening. And therefore, because of the uncertainty, a lot of decision makers are frozen and they're not making decisions. What they are doing, they're consuming educational material, right? So they're reading about what is happening. They're reading about what are people's opinions. And it's an amazing time to get right in front of decision makers and make sure that they know you as a, whatever you want to call it, an authority or someone who has an opinion on a certain subject, because there's not a lot of other people who are talking about it, right? And it's so easy to build that relationship on social media right now. And then in whatever it is, 3 months time, 5 months time, 6 months time, when they are in a position that they're going to be making decisions, because during that period of time, everybody was quiet, or a large number of people have been quiet, it's much more likelier for them to approach you. And it's much more likely if you approach them for them to be responsive and give a positive response. So what I would say is, don't pitch your services right now. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. Look at educational material. You write a blog, put it on LinkedIn, run a little bit of advertising behind it, and share it with people. This has always been a no-no because LinkedIn has been so expensive. Today, I would say you should definitely do that. You write a white paper, promote it, push it out. If you can create educational video posts, do the same thing. I think if you try to sell, you're going to be barking against the wrong tree, and you're not going to see a lot of response. And you might also get negative response of people saying, you know, there are businesses who are losing their livelihood and all these challenges in your selling. So that's the approach I would take in terms of your content strategy and how to leverage LinkedIn. Be super educational for at least the next 2 months. I mean, the situation is so liquid, but that's the approach that I would take. I got one more slide, but we had a question. Was there a question that came in?
Yeah, so there was another one which you've briefly touched on. Is there any content that is not worth posting during COVID?
Sales. Don't do sales. You know, don't do heavy sales. I think that could potentially backfire, and you're gonna waste energy, because decision making, unless you're in a space that you've identified a kind of need that people are going to be making decisions right now. So that could be IT companies. People are going remote. Is their VPN secure? Right. That's a message that a lot of people are looking at. But even those, you can combine it with educational material. So don't get me wrong. Any industry that you can find that it is going through they need something right now, then you obviously can have a sales approach, but you have to also be very empathetic in terms of how you approach it. So don't be very blunt and say, you know, you have this problem, do you want to buy? Have more empathy. So unless you're in an industry like that, you could potentially do a little bit of sale. There are not a lot of industries, obviously, that have that benefit. Don't go after industries who are packed. So, you know, if you're going after, for example, frozen food that directly sells to consumers, they would not have time to pay attention to any marketing material, right? Or any sales pitch, because they have orders coming out of their ears. So, and I think there are different tiers of companies. There's the first tier right now who has suffered dramatically from COVID, and they can't keep their doors open. There is the other kind of type of companies who are frozen. They have the cash, they can sustain themselves, but they're frozen in terms of what they're going to do, and they're not sure what should be the approach. They're the ones that are educational material are best for. Then there are those who are doing okay. There's still demand because of these shifts, and but it's not crazy. It's not unbelievable demand. And then there are the ones who are producing masks, right? They're going crazy with the amount of work that they have to do. And I think the tier 2 and tier 3 are the best targets for educational material, Tier 4 would not be listening. They don't have time. And tier 1 have some major basic needs that they have to meet, that your approach will fall on deaf ears. So that's what I would say over there. Okay. Communicate versus publish. So, make sure that you look at this as a communication platform rather than you're just publishing and leaving it there. So when people interact with your post on LinkedIn, make sure you interact back, because that also tells LinkedIn that this is a valuable piece of content and will push it higher in their organic reach. Try to break the rules. As I said, try some text post versus video post. LinkedIn does change its algorithm. The overall structure of what I've talked about has been the same for the past 12 months. So there's not going to be major changes, but there are going to be a few movements in their algorithm. So that's the other thing. Always think mobile. So when you're posting on LinkedIn, think mobile. And I'll give an example here. So this is one post, and this is being viewed on mobile phone. It is dense. There's a lot of text over there. And you got to understand what the mindset of individuals is when they're going through their newsfeed. They're scrolling through. They're looking for something to keep their attention and get them engaged. They're very unlikely to read big chunks of text. And sometimes when you write it on desktop, it does not look like a big chunk of text. But when it gets shrink to when you shrink it to mobile, it becomes clunky. So make sure you avoid that and try something like this, where I have short sentences. Sometimes this is not grammatically correct, but it is a lot more digestible for the mobile user. And what you're really saying is, hey, I'm going to give you one line, and if I've done a good job, give me another 10 seconds to read another three lines. And if I've done a good job again, give me more time. You're not having the same ask in the first option that I give. So always think about mobile when you're writing content, producing content. Don't put massively long videos over there. It's not, people are there to spend some time, and if they come across a minute, 2, 3 minute video would be great. But longer videos, unless you are a massive authority, unless you have a great following, and unless your content is very engaging, it's probably not going to get the engagement you're looking for. Okay, and the last one is best time for posting. It's tricky now. I don't know. This previously, it would have been in the morning, usually middle of the week. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Those are usually the best times in the morning to post. When you put a LinkedIn post out there, it gets traction for about 48 hours. After that, it dies out. You stop seeing not ROI, but you stop seeing engagement on your post. LinkedIn kind of kills it. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you make a post. If it's going viral, or if it's getting a lot of views, which a good number of views right now is anything above 1,000 in the early days is good, but you can easily push that to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 views if you get good at your craft. So and that happens within 48 hours. So to keep that in mind. Also, if you post, so if I posted something today, right? Let's say in the morning I've posted, and it's going really well. It's just like I see the curve, like the views are going up. There's a lot of engagement, yada, yada, yada. If you make a post in the evening, it's going to cannibalize the previous post. So LinkedIn all of a sudden is going to kill you. You're going to see the engagement on your previous post is going to die out. So if you're seeing one of your posts is getting engagement, leave it. Don't post anything on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is going to kill it. Cool. I think that was kind of it with regards to like kind of 101 on LinkedIn. There are a couple more advanced stuff that I'll talk about, but we got one question from Jeff. Should you be sticking with or adopting your marketing comms and strategy? Good point, Jeff. You cannot use the same messaging that you used before Corona. it's going to just sound tone deaf. Everything is shifted, and the way that people do business, the way people are going to be interacting with one another, the way your even internal meetings are being operated is different now. So you can't, and it's so easy to see when somebody puts something that was like previously prepared, you can see, you'd be like, this is not for this kind of day and age. So you have to pivot, you have to change your messaging. And it doesn't mean that you have to completely get rid of everything. Just be conscious of the fact that people are in a different mindset now, and shift your messaging to talk about that. As I said, in the next couple of days, we're going to be, for example, changing our messaging on our website, both our community growth colony and our company website, xGrowth, to be more, we probably are even a bit slow in doing that. Some companies have already done it. So definitely change the way you communicate with the outside world. Okay. And
brilliant.
And that's, oh, we got another, Jeff has another question. Do you think things will be completely different forever or return to relatively normal in 4 to 6 months? I don't know, Jeff. I'm not sure, man. I mean, I'm in the same boat. Things are different already, and whether it's gonna, I think there are certain things that are gonna fundamentally shift. I think remote work is gonna be a lot more common. Having employees in different parts of the world is gonna be a lot more common, and deliveries are going to explode. I have a couple of friends in South Korea, and they're a little bit ahead of us. So I constantly talk to them, and I'm like, what is happening? What do you see that it's like previously, like 2 weeks ago, you couldn't see? Delivery, people doing delivery is going through the roof. So there's definitely going to be some massive shifts in terms of how we live. And I think there's going to be, we could get a little bit more broader than LinkedIn. I think there's going to be some even geopolitical shifts where you see Asia coming out of this faster than the Western world, and that's going to most definitely have some impact. Have you got a good ROI from LinkedIn paid advertising? Only for education right now. If you are, yes, LinkedIn, it's expensive. So if you were doing ads for closing deals, you got to keep in mind your deals have to be probably about $10,000 and above. If you run ads for a $20, $100 purchase, you're not going to see an ROI. So you have to have a high ticket item if you are promoting it on LinkedIn, because the cost is high. What I would say right now is that brand recognition and educational material is worth more right now. You're going to get a lot more bang for your buck if you have a long-term view in 6 months' time than you would see today. And some businesses don't have that. Some businesses don't have the luxury of having that long-term view, and some businesses just don't have it. They would look at ROI today, and but I think taking that even for paid, taking that educational approach and putting educational material out there is going to give you ROI in 6 months' time. In normal times, yes, you will see an ROI with LinkedIn when you have high ticket items. That's that question. What else do we got? I think there were a couple questions coming in.
Yeah. Eric and Zelia.
Okay. Have you run to next meeting? Okay. No, that's not a question. How much are companies taking care of their staff now? Will most be sacked, or will companies hang on to their staff? I don't know, Eric. That's that's a good question, and I think it depends on so many different factors. It depends on the cash reserves of the company, but I don't think LinkedIn is not gonna give that answer. But there are just so many factors that are in play. One of the things that I would say, and I was speaking to one of my mentors, and he'd gone through the .com bubble and the GFC. One of the things that he said is it's very dangerous to cut your costs to the bone, because times are going to change and a lot of things are going to come around. But if you cut too deep, your costs too deep, what you're going to have is when times turn around, your competitor is going to be in a much better position to grow versus yourself. And you are going to have a hard time recruiting fast enough and growing as fast. And that's going to be a massive issue. So companies going to be, again, there are different factors to take into consideration, but growth is going to be much harder if you cut too deep during good times. Ignatius, awesome name, by the way. How effective are LinkedIn ABM campaigns? LinkedIn ABM campaigns are effective, but what you got to know about ABM campaign in general is that ABM, which stands for account-based marketing, for anyone who doesn't know, and I'll quickly say what account-based marketing is. Account-based marketing is instead of going out there and marketing to everyone, picking, let's say 50 accounts that are most relevant to you, and then creating a marketing campaign around them and targeting them. So that's ABM. How effective is LinkedIn ABM? It is very effective, but what you got to also understand is that ABM is a multi-channel approach. So you cannot rely on just one channel to give you results. You have to take into consideration LinkedIn, you have to take into consideration email, calls, other platforms, retargeting. There is going to be your cadence has to be multi-platform in order for it to make sense. LinkedIn's obviously a big component of that. Yeah, so that's it. I think we're out of
Brilliant. Yeah, if anyone has any other burning questions, feel free to quickly type them in either the chat or the Q&A panel.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, also reach out to Shahin on his email. Also be curious, just before you quickly head off, if you could just write what's one key takeaway in the chat box. What's something that you found really useful, really relevant, something that maybe you haven't heard before or was slightly surprising. If you could just share it in the chat box, it'd just be great to hear what was useful.
Yeah, as people write that, I think the most important thing that people should take away from this is that do not shy away from having a voice on LinkedIn right now. And in fact, on any platform. You know, I think it's Henry Ford is like, stopping your marketing to save cost is like stopping your watch to save time, right? So, and it's an amazing opportunity right now to get your message out there and produce content. So, so I would say that if anyone's going to take one thing away, that would be it. Fiona has a question. With these current COVID-19 situations, do you think it is appropriate to add connections on LinkedIn from webinar sessions? From webinar sessions? Yeah, absolutely. What Fiona, what do you mean by webinar sessions? Like people who, like you would run a webinar and then you would reach out and connect to people who've attended your webinar? Is that what you're thinking? Let us know what you think, and I'll go through the next question. Oh, your answer is yes. Yeah, I mean, if they attended your webinar, you know, feel free to reach out to them. They obviously, there's a familiarity there. They know who you are. So yeah, I don't see a problem with that. And you know, at the end of the day, we're all, there's a lot of businesses are still operating, and I think we need to connect with one another more than ever right now because of all the isolation that is going on. So absolutely. What is more important for sharing content right now? Company page or pushing sales and internal people to post themselves? Individual personal LinkedIn profiles are going to be a lot more impactful than your company. I think over time, you have to have a strategy to increase the following of your LinkedIn company profile. If you don't have that right now, I would start with 1, 2, 3 individuals in the company, push their profiles up, and over time, then transition that to your company, but not today. Do you have any tips or tricks using Sales Navigator? That's a whole webinar on its own.
Yeah.
That's a long one. We got, sorry, Ignatius. But we gotta look. If you have any questions, reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. I'm more than happy to answer questions on that platform, and go through that. What was that?
I was going to say, and of course, feel free to post a link to your LinkedIn profile in the chat so that everyone who is on the webinar can connect to each other.
That's it.
Just make sure you post it to everyone in the meeting, so all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, it's just us that see it.
Yeah. Okay, Eric has a question. Are people on the phone more or less these days? I would say more. I'm on the phone more because I can't do face-to-face. So definitely more, definitely a lot more on Zoom. So definitely more on phone. Jeff, best way to get individual profiles pushed up. Okay, one of the ways to do this, Jeff, is create a pod. Now, if you haven't heard of a pod, this is probably a little bit more advanced. And create a pod within your company, within your circles. And what a pod is a group of individuals who agree to engage with someone's LinkedIn posts, right? So what you can do, there are also tools out there that you can automate within your company. So you can have everyone in the company. I know there are some people in organizations where, they maybe on Slack or Teams, they would put something up on LinkedIn and they would share the link on Teams and they're like, hey, can everyone engage with this? There are tools that you can automate that. You add people's profiles to it and you say, once there's a post up, automatically engage with it. So that's one of the best ways to get your message out there, to create a community. It's usually called pods, LinkedIn pods. You can Google it. There's plenty of information out there on it. We help a lot of our clients with it as well. And you could create these pods where there is fast engagement with a post early on when it goes out, right? So that's one of the fastest way to get engagement on your LinkedIn profile in the early days.
Brilliant. All right. I think we might leave it there. It's heading into lunchtime. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Any questions, of course, feel free to connect with Shahin directly. Otherwise, any questions from our side or any feedback as well, very open to hearing feedback. It seems that we'll be engaging the wider community through this format and medium for quite some time. And so let's see how engaging, how meaningful we can make it. So any ideas or feedback, very open to hearing. Otherwise, thank you all. This was recorded, so it will be posted online as well. So if you do want to go back through and revisit anything, then it will be there and all yours. Brilliant.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for jumping on.
Brilliant. All right. See you all.
Take care. Bye.